Carlos Nelson with What's Up Kansas City. And today we have one of our local politicians on, and this is on our political segment. Who do we have here?
Hi, this is Katheryn Shields. I'm the councilwoman from the 4th District at Large for Kansas City, Missouri.
Hey, Councilwoman Shields. And I don't know why I'm calling you Councilwoman Shields. Everybody else, I just be calling them by their first name and stuff.
Oh, call me
But I'm saying
Katheryn.
I've been knowing you so long. I don't know. It just that popped out and I noticed it just now. But what I want you to describe where your district is for our people that don't know what your boundaries are.
Sure. Well, of course, running citywide, although I have to live in a particular district, I'm actually voted on and represent all the people in Kansas City, Missouri. But my residency boundaries are about State Line on the west, Troost on the east, 58th Street on the south, and then we go through Plaza, Westport, downtown, and then we head to the east and go over into Northeast, and we run above 8th Street all the way to 435. And then in addition to that, we have a little kind of bubble up at the top where we go north of the river and represent basically the Briar Cliff, North Oak area up to about Vivian.
All right, now let's get into where the rubber meets the road.
Okay.
Tell your story. The ball is in your court.
All right, thank you. Well, I grew up here in the Kansas City area. I was born in Smithville, and my folks owned a farm up by Edgerton, Missouri at that time. But when I was about 4 years old, we moved to Parkville, where my folks owned a farm until I was a junior in high school when they sold it. And so my senior year, I actually went to North Kansas City High School and graduated. And so that was quite a switch because Park Hill was very rural at the time. And we would have only had about maybe 100, not quite 150 kids in my graduating class. But moving my senior year to Northtown, I actually graduated from a senior class of almost 1,000 kids. So that was quite an adjustment, but I think it was a good one. I went away, of course, to college the next year to Central.
I want to back up a little bit.
Okay.
All right. And you're coming up in middle school and high school. Right. As I said earlier, who were some of the major people that influenced you? You know, you be young.
Sure.
It's you impressionable.
Right. Sure.
Talk about them.
I have to say both. I would say my mother and my father, first off. My dad was a stationary engineer, which meant he helped, if the building was supposed to be cold, he kept it cold. If it was supposed to be warm, he kept it warm. And he was very definitely interested in the news and interested in what was happening in the world beyond him.
Was he one that my generation, my parents and those, was he one that read the paper every day?
He read it every day. You better
that's
believe
what you were describing. Yes. It brought me back.
Yes, absolutely. Every day he read the paper. And we had lively conversations around the dinner table about politics and issues revolving around politics. My dad, being a union man, was very definitely a Democrat and was kind of taught early on that if you were on the right path, you were on the Democratic path. And I think those principles, but what really, for my dad, that envisioned was caring about other people, understanding the government's not just there to organize the military, but also has a role in improving the lives of people. And so programs like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid were all things that he believed in and supported and taught those things to me when I was young.
You know what you sound like to me?
What?
About your dad?
Yeah.
Your dad was a Jimmy Hoffa man.
Well,
when I say Jimmy Hoffa, that because I'm 69 and I'm old enough to really remember the first part of the century
sure.
and how things were, how corporate community, how politics, how they'll have you working free, and how the unions have the struggles that they're not all the way right, but
No,
they
like
they
everybody.
definitely beat being hitched up like a horse or a mule,
Right.
and don't have no representation. That's what I was saying about your dad. From what you were describing.
That's exactly right. My dad, when he was a young man, he was working for a company and he got his hand injured in a machine.
The program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.
And basically that was it. They said, well, Rollin, you're a good workman. So when your hand heals up, come on back. And if you can do the job, you've got the job back. But there was no workman's compensation. There was no health care benefits, nothing. My dad was just out of a job until his hand healed. And so it's stories like that and first person experiences of my family that has made me realize that government has a very important role in sort of evening the playing field.
That's what you pay your taxes for.
Right, exactly. And that one of the things that I think distresses me most about many people today, particularly in the Republican Party, is they talk about government doesn't have a purpose and we need to starve government until we shrink it down to where we can, I think the phrase is drown it in the bathtub.
Hey, Katie, honey, now hold it. You a politician. I said you've been around the corner 100 times. Anything that we want to get fixed in this country, we can fix it. I get so tired of, especially here in Kansas City, my community for the most part, running around here talking about this violence and all of this other stuff, that if you really want to fix it, you can fix it. This racism with the police, if all the police had to be insured and like bonded, and and you had 1 or 2 incidents, you lose your bond. I don't think white people dislike black people that much that they want to lose their job, how they are providing for their family. And so there are simple fixes for a lot of these things, but it's economically advantageous because I don't know what, because I never really had a whole lot of conversations with you, but I'm a black and white guy because that's how we live in. And people can want to kick the can down the road and I'm positive. You be positive you want. We're living in a very negative, a very toxic environment overall around the world. And there's not too much to be happy about, but you're in a position as a politician to make some decisions, because all politics are local, and to make some decisions that possibly can make some changes, but one has to have the real support and understanding from the constituency of exactly what these changes are and how they're going to affect the constituency long term, in my estimation. But what does Mr. Nelson know?
Yeah. No, I think you're right on it. And, but anyway, a little more background. I then went away to college, ended up transferring to UMKC where I met
Where did you go at first?
I went to Central Missouri State, Warrensburg.
All right.
And then
what was that experience? Run this down. What was that experience like? You the country girl going to college. What was that like when you first hit campus? Tell the people.
Well, it was interesting. That was a time when that was would have been fall of 64 when I went to college. And at Warrensburg, it was very paternalistic. Women could not wear pants on campus. You had to either wear a dress or a skirt. It didn't matter how cold it was, how hard the wind was blowing. You had to have a skirt on. You could not
almost
have
like Victorian. This is what women
Exactly,
do. Women don't wear.
exactly.
I remember.
Yeah. And then you had to live in the dorm, and the dorms were not in any way co-education, co-ed like they are now. There were women's dorms and there were men's dorms.
Well,
And
I'm out of touch. I didn't even know they had co-ed dorms now.
oh, they do now. Oh, my
all
God.
right.
Yes. Yeah.
It was separate
No, they
when I
did.
was in college.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought when my son went away to college in 2008, we, of course, took him to his dorm, and I thought it would be like one floor guys, one floor gals. Oh, no, everybody was just mixed up. I mean, there were only men shared the same rooms, and only women shared the same rooms. And they did have separate hall restrooms, but the rooms were just interspersed wherever anybody's room ended up. It was very different. So going back to Warrensburg, you couldn't you had to wear a skirt. Dorms during the week, the men had no hours. The women had to be in by 10:30 or 10:30 during the week. And then on Friday and Saturday night, you could be out till midnight. And then Sunday, you could be out till 11, I think. But you got demerits and you got time out, sort of. You had a room where you could go and study. If you weren't in by the prescribed time, then you were required to, the next evening, spend time just in a room by yourself doing your homework. I mean, it was very paternalistic.
How I'm saying, was that the first time you was away from home?
It was the first time I was away from home.
You know, because you get older, you done seen it all to a degree. Some girls and some boys that get to college, they've never had no freedom in their life.
Yeah.
And I got the tail end of your era, because I went to Virginia State like in '69 as a freshman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And those girl dorms, you better not go over in that area after a certain time.
Right.
And how you know, everything was really strict when it came to you girls and what was allowed and what wasn't.
And that's the way it was in Warrensburg as well. And so then I transferred to UMKC for my sophomore year, and actually came back and lived at home while I was then commuted to college every
What was
day.
the difference in your mindset and your maturity?
I think being away for the year on my own had been good for me. I think I'd grown up quite a bit, but it was.
What were some of the lessons that you learned while you were at CMSU that, like you say, you grew?
Yeah, I think just kind of learning how to be on my own, because obviously growing up in a family with 5 kids, I hadn't experienced that much before. And where I had to make my own decisions, and I needed to make sure that I got my work done.
Did you know what you wanted to major in when you went away?
I thought I did. I thought I was going to do history, which I did do history, but I also thought that ultimately I would end up as a teacher, either in a high school or college level, depending on.
And what was that mindset? Because I try to tell young people when I was coming up, the role models was a coach.
Yeah.
I don't know, some kind of way I have watched too much Andy Griffith, gas station attendant. I'm saying you what you see is we don't take a second thought to the impressions. I'm gonna say this. When I used to have my construction company back in the day when you first was counsel,
right? Yes.
this young man now, he's got kids that went to college and all this. He used to clean up the jobs at the end of the day. You know, I'd be renovating a sixplex or something.
Sure.
And he was a grown man about 10 years ago. Now, Miguel has to be probably close to 50. He said, Mr. Nelson, I was at an event. He said, you know, I never seen a black man pay a white man before I worked for you. That floored me, Katheryn.
Yes.
That floored me.
Yeah.
You went to Lincoln Prep. We're talking about in the 80s.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm bringing the conversation full circle, as how impressionable was you as a freshman and things that happened, and go on to your what UMKC was like, and how you might even change your approach or seeing what you wanted to line your life out a little different.
Right. Well, at CMSU, I joined the debate team, which I really enjoyed. I had not debated in high school, but I thought I would try it in college. And that was great because I just got to travel, not far away, but I mean, University of Nebraska, Oberlin, you know.
What was that like? You know, it's like when I'm doing my sports interviews with the kids, and the first time they go out of town. Yeah. What was, tell our audience what you were thinking, if you can remember, and the feelings when you come off a farm or a small town.
Right. There's a big world out there.
Yeah, talk to our audience about it.
And you've known it's there, but yet there's nothing like experiencing it firsthand. And even today, one of my husband's and my greatest pleasures is traveling. And so, and I think that comes from, at least on my side, from as a child, my dad was a great fisherman. And so for vacation, we went where you could fish. So we went to Roaring River, we went to Bennett Springs, you know, we went to Lake Tanacoma.
How was your hand with the worms and things?
Well, I wasn't too bad. I would get bored pretty quickly. So if I caught a fish or two early on in the morning, then I was off to do other things.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I have 4 older brothers. I was the youngest.
Did they baby you, or what was the deal? Run that down. I'm interested in that.
It kind of depends on the I have most of my brothers were quite a bit older. My oldest brother was almost 20 years older than me.
All right.
And then next, he's 10 years older than me. And then next, 8 years older. And then my brother that I'm actually closest to is like 2 years older.
What was the atmosphere having all them damn brothers? And being a girl, and even dating back in the day, you got all the brothers. Not a whole lot of people, you know they'll get thumped. What was that like?
Yeah, I think my brothers were fairly nonviolent, so that I didn't have too much of that problem. And as I said, most of them, by the time I got to dating age, were already out of the home, either married or working. But my brother that's only a couple of years older, he and I were close then as we grew up as kids, and we're still very, very close. He actually taught, he got his PhD from the University of Minnesota, and he's taught in Minnesota, and he's taught in St. Louis. He spent most of his education career outside of Kansas City, but as things came closer to retirement, he came back to Kansas City.
How do you growing up in a family like that?
Yeah.
How do you look at that separation? And do you think between you and your younger brother, the social dynamics had changed that makes you think about your career change, you know, where you're going, how the world is progressing, where you're at? Talk about that a little bit. The different dynamics between your other 3 brothers.
Yeah. Well, you know, like I said, my older brothers were, by the time I was 10 or so, they were pretty much up and out of home. And so it was really Don and I, my brother Don and I used to laugh later in life. I said my folks didn't have one big family, they had three small ones. And that's kind of the way it worked. My oldest brother was sort of an only child for almost 10 years. And then we had the two brothers just 2 years apart. And then 6 years later came the next set of two. And that's an interesting dynamic. And
That's what I know.
yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic.
It
But
probably helped in politics, I would think.
well, I think again, influence from my mom's side, my dad was actually a very shy person and was not very outgoing at all.
Mom was a
And-
matriarch type.
But Mom, not so much a matriarch, but she was very outgoing and she was very involved in the church that we went to. And so
What's that?
I was raised actually in the First Baptist Church of North Kansas City and went there from the time I was 4 on through graduating
Hey,
from
what kind of
college.
services did they, I've been with the Baptists and different things. Did they preach fire and brimstone or did they preach love? And,
They did. It's interesting. If you kind of hear sermons today are more about sort of introspection and how do you make yourself a better person. And back then it really was, there's a right way and there's the highway. And if you don't take
there's
the
no
right
in
way,
between.
there's no in between. And if you don't take the right way, you are on the wrong path to hell and damnation.
Now, from a political standpoint, and forming views, political views, social views, and all of that, religion from that because the people who from that era are running the world now. I was interviewing some young people, and they were saying they was tired of all these gray-haired people deciding their future because they're not even going to be here.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. That's why we need to encourage younger people to be involved because exactly right, the world's going to be theirs, and I really fear we're not going to leave it in a very good condition for them. I mean, even if we actually recognize the issues of climate change right now, we are still going to pass on to our children and grandchildren an environment that is far less healthy, far less stable than what we all grew up with in the 50s.
And when you say far, you need to be using a capital F. Far, 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 far from what we. And to me, I hate they might have some Democrats that believe this. I can't believe the Republican Party. Like I said, I'm halfway independent. I usually vote Democrat unless there's a Republican that I know is right. Like I'm a Democrat, but Sharp was my boy. And,
sure, yeah. Well, John,
all right, and back I'm saying when I was doing all, but for the most part, how can you deny climate change? I'm saying, if you ever been in a damn traffic jam or ever been to another city and see all these cars on the planet, and that's just in your city on a daily basis, and you think that's not causing no effect? I'm like, haven't you heard of Einstein? For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. That's just basic science.
Right. It's it gets back to money and to power. But what still amazes me is even the very wealthy, their children are still going to need water to drink.
But they don't care. I have come to the conclusion that I hate to even be on the air talking like this, that the Republican Party in general don't believe in God, don't believe in nothing but profit. And they have taken their base that is totally uneducated. The real base of the Republican Party is totally uneducated, totally involved in the Bible, Christianity, and nothing science-based to a degree. I'm not saying everybody,
Yes.
but and they're not even looking at history because they're not educated, because they would look at Trump and see Mussolini. They would look at Trump and they would see Hitler. They would look at Trump and they would see Stalin. They would look at Trump and see the worst things that human beings could come to. And it seems like they don't see none of this.
Yeah.
And
they refuse to see it.
Yeah, well, like I'm not spirit, but the more I'm living, the more I'm starting to believe in good and evil. I don't even believe in all that hocus pocus stuff, but they're bad. But I'm like, it seems like there's an agenda, and the things Trump has been able to get away with, just one of those things, infidelity would have sunk anybody else.
Yeah.
Now you are a Democrat. I don't understand the Democratic Party. Every time they get in power, they don't throw the gauntlet down like the Republicans. They don't say, you're not doing nothing.
Yeah.
You're not getting nobody appointed. You're not getting no money. They try to reach out.
One of the weaknesses of the Democratic Party, I believe, is that we are a group of rational people, and we care about government. We want government to function. And so when we get in power, we try to do things, it's sort of like the old go do unto others as you would have others do unto you. That's kind of how we try to govern. We try to include the other side. We try to come up with compromises. Well, it's certainly.
What it's like? I keep interrupting you.
Okay.
This is the allegory. I'm getting ready to cross the creek, and the snake says, "Mr. Nelson, let me ride on your back because I can't swim."
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I get across the creek, got him on my back. We get on land and he bite me.
Yeah.
And then I say, "Why you bite me?" He said, "You know I was a snake."
That's right.
I'm saying it. So how the Democrats been in politics all this time, and for the last half century, the Republican Party has changed drastically over the last 30 years, but it's been changing over the last 50 years. And they are the party of privilege, period. And anybody that doesn't see that, is something wrong with their eyesight.
Well, they're certainly looking at things with a different perspective than you and I have. That's for darn sure.
Hey, I think I'm halfway all right, but I had to have I had to have hip surgery, and without affordable health care, I was in trouble. Do you hear me?
Sure.
And I don't understand how the white population can be voting against their own personal interests. By the time they find out their insurance is, they using Obamacare, not understanding that they under the same coverage. What's with that?
Yeah, I do not understand. Well, there's an old saying, which is the truth can go around the world before, no, excuse me, a lie can go around the world before the truth gets its shoes tied.
All right.
And there is some truth to that.
Well, that's what I say. I say people will believe a lie way quicker than they'll believe the truth.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. And, growing up in the Baptist church as a young person, the Baptist church of the 50s, 60s, and 70s was their primary tenet after belief in Jesus Christ was the absolute need for separation of church and state. And yet, with the coming of the 80s and the ecumenical movement and the Republican Party realizing that they could reach out to conservative Christians and bring them into the Republican Party.
Fold.
Yeah, into the fold. Suddenly, nobody, you don't hear Baptist ministers talking about separation of church and state anymore. And it's an issue, I believe, of a very human
I
one.
wish I had some dollar bills to put up on the.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
But it's
That's
also,
the issue.
it's about power too. I mean, you don't.
Well, money is power.
When they preached about separation of church and state, they were afraid of there becoming a state religion, and that they wouldn't be, it never occurred to them that they might become the state religion. And so they were very anti it. But once they began to see that Republicans were willing to at least talk about agreeing with social issues they had, such as being anti a woman's right to choose.
That was my next question to you. Yeah. How could white women support the Republican Party on them controlling their bodies?
Because there is certainly a certain segment of women, white women, who believe that life begins in conception, and that therefore, you know, you are committing murder when you.
But this is my thing on that.
Yeah, well, let me finish my thought on that, though.
All right.
And so, you know, and that becomes the driving force in their life. I was once reading something from, God, I can't think of the author, but anyway, he said that to do good, to do good is good, but to tell other people how to do good is just as important and a hell of a lot easier. And that's kind of the way I look at this whole issue on choice, etc., and gay marriage and whatever. To me, these individuals are spending their time not focusing on how do they do good, but on how they tell other people to do good.
And I get that, but my whole point, this country was built supposedly on free choice, free speech, and all of this. How can you feel that your way is so much righter that you can impose what you want on me and my body?
Well, that has to do with theocracies. When you come to the point that thinking that you understand what your God wants, and that it's your moral duty to impose that doctrine on other people.
Yeah, well, what I've learned, and I guess that just comes with age and wisdom, do not put your judge's robe on because you're not qualified.
Yeah, well,
when I was really young and really into all kinds of crap, my grandmother sat me down and said, Carl, how you judging people, that's how, she was like, that's how the Lord's going to judge you. You judge yourself. So every time you be hard on somebody, just think, when you come up with judgment, they're going to judge you by your own principles, your own values. So you got to get it right. And that didn't all the way straighten me up, but that halfway made me see life and how I'm thinking, living in my bubble, that everybody has a bubble and I don't have a right. Like they say, you born by yourself and you die by yourself. I don't have a right to inflict my values on nobody else unless they're part of the collective and we're working in a collective like the governments. But now the governments and the people think that they can just tell us to, I see Stalinism. I just see our country imploding. Like the great dynasties, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you're a scholar on that. Where do
Yeah.
you see that with not just Kansas City, our country?
But well, I don't think you've ever had a democracy that survived more than a couple of hundred years. And
Oh.
so that's very scary. And I really believe we're at a crossroads with this election. We have if the American people, the majority of them will not or cannot see the problems with Donald Trump, and he receives another 4 years, I just think that's, I mean, all the court, we will have lost the courts. They will be packed. You know, everybody's talking about packing. The people that have packed the courts have been the Republicans.
Over the last, that's what I'm saying. Oh,
And look at Obama. Obama left. In fact, Trump brags. He says, "Oh, well, I've appointed over 150 judges besides the Supreme Court," because Obama wouldn't appoint them. It's not that Obama wouldn't appoint them. It's that the Republicans
held, I'm saying they held the numbers.
Yes,
but,
no.
But the point I'm bringing on that, again, when the Democrats get in power, and these Supreme Court justices, some of them stay too long. That Ginsburg was definitely a warrior, but she should have retired when Obama was in office.
Well, but here's the problem. It isn't that she refused to retire. It was that Obama didn't believe he could get the Senate.
Oh, right. I remember, he was trying to get a couple of, now you refreshing my thing.
Right.
They wasn't letting nothing go through that he was trying to do.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, all right. Well, exactly. I do believe the Democrats are going to take this. I don't think Trump is going to win this, but I'm very hesitant about what they do. Now, I want to talk a little politics, cut you off, because I'm going to have you back on the show again to talk about some other things. But
we've been talking about politics.
Yeah. Ice Cube and Puffy, are you familiar with the situations with them at all?
I am not. No.
All right. Well, you need to be. All right. So Ice Cube is working with Trump, supposedly. All right. He has like a black manifesto.
Okay.
And, Puffy was saying that he wanted the black people to hold their votes. So you need to check some of these interviews out. Charlamagne the God interviewed Puffy yesterday or day before. It's on our Facebook channels, What's Up Kansas City Worldwide. Anyway, about a half an hour interview. And they're saying the Democrats or the Republicans, the hell with both of them, because neither one of them parties are serving the black community. And they were criticizing Ice Cube, the national, the MSNBCs, and he's been on a couple of the talk news, because how could you be talking this black stuff and you're doing, you're doing something with Trump? And he's saying that, and that's how I feel. The Biden camp rejected, didn't want to do nothing. And you got to work with people that's going to work with your agenda. And Puffy and him are saying, I don't care nothing about the Republicans or the Democrats, that I'm only concerned with what you're doing for black people, not yellow people, brown people, and all of this. And I've contended this, that MBE and all of that stuff, those are ways to stop you from doing work, because I always say white people don't have to prove that they white to do work. Why we gotta prove that we black? But all of those are games. But at the end of the day, Puffy was saying yesterday, black people need to have their own party. And this is where I know you can relate what I'm about to say. When I came here in 78, Freedom Inc. was a god dog powerhouse. You know it, and I know it. In 78. All right. I'm more like the white people, they're gonna fight it out on any level, whether it's Republican or Democratic, or it's just an issue. But freedom was always had that block of votes that would be the deciding factor in a lot of arguments and positions. And I feel if Black people had their own party in this country, that it would the dynamics would be the same way. When they finished, the majority community finished squaring off, we would have a block of votes that would be the deciding factor and could not be sidelined the way we've been sidelined, not having less more having a seat at the table, not even having somebody to voice our opinion at the table. And so with you, Kat, and my white brothers and sisters, and by the way, my son lives up in Smithville, got a real nice place, big place, right off of 55.
Yeah.
And we've got to try to live together. He's married to white. It's not white, Black, it's racism and all of these other issues, because there's only one race, a human race.
Yeah.
And I understand that. And as I said, working with people like yourself, trying to reach out and have an honest conversation, not kick the can down the road and say what's convenient, what people want to hear. How do you see the mayor? How do you see what he's doing?
Well, in one of the biggest issues facing us right now, which is COVID, the mayor has provided terrific leadership. He has worked very closely with our health department and with recommendations from the Center for Disease Control. And he really has, frankly, at some political cost to him, really tried to have standards and control.
Do you have the same opinion of the mayor now as you had of him last year? A year into service of what he was going to do versus what he's doing now and so forth.
I've generally been pleased with the mayor. Like I said, the biggest issue facing us has been COVID, and he has been the leader in this entire metropolitan area. He has been the person, the glue that has kept a coalition together, trying to have sensible controls in place.
Where are you at on this city manager situation?
Well, we've done our interviews.
Nah, I know you did the interviews, but are you really satisfied with them candidates that you got?
Well, they're the candidates we got.
Yeah, because I like I said, you've been around the corner.
Yeah,
you know your way around City Hall. You're not blind.
And I will say, of the ones we interviewed, there were a couple that I actually was very impressed with. And I think that they could do a good job for Kansas City.
The other thing is, as I say, I hate saying white and Black, but again, I got to, for my audience, let them know this is what it is. All right. So with my Black council, we got 4 Black council people basically representing our area. And when I did Shaw and Robinson, I was asking them, could they work with Barnes and Ellington? And Ellington is more like the lone gangster. He's a
unique person.
Yeah, but hold it. Ellington built his base where he didn't have to depend on no political organization or I got respect for that.
Sure.
All right. And so he doesn't have to go along with nothing. That's how I feel. Can't nobody tell me nothing. I pay all my bills. I own all my networks and they debt free. And so people be like, Nelson, you be talking crazy. No, I talk like America was meant. anything on my mind, I can say. I don't have to curb my conversation because of your feelings or because of anything else. And I think too much of that has taken place. So going back to Ellington, I named our council people the crew. Like they got the Ocasio and them. They call what do they call Ocasio and them up in DC? The those 4 girls.
I'm sorry. Ocasio-Cortez. Yeah.
Yeah. What do they call? I love them. I love them girls.
They are, what people don't understand is that to come out even close to being in the middle of the road, you got to have people speaking out on the left because you're going to have the voices on the right. And we need people who are willing to speak out and say, hey, we need major change.
But the economics stops a lot of politicians from doing that because, like I said, with the law officers, I want to keep this little money coming in. I want to serve my community, but I have to look at the hard facts. If I do too much, I won't be here. And now where will I be?
Yeah.
And that's the 1% has us in that vice grip.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying. I look at it, first of all, like I said, I'm probably, if you put me on a spectrum, I'm far left. I mean, in fact, Bernie, oh, absolutely. Bernie's not nearly radical enough.
Well, I don't blame you because the situation is radical. We need some radical solutions.
Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. But
how do you get along with our council people?
What's being called radical and socialist. I mean, I was listening to something on the news this morning where this lady who identified herself, I think her husband was a military veteran. So he's deceased, I think, but she has his pension. She may have a Social Security pension, I don't know, but certainly the main money she has is coming from the federal government. And she talked about how horrible Trump was, but she says, I'm just afraid of socialism. She has a roof over her head. What is Social Security except socialism? What is Medicare except socialism? People banding together and the government providing service.
But that's when, again, that's spin. And when you're not educated.
Yeah.
You're not educated. They have us operating in a atmosphere of fear. They have that. To me, they have the white community operating in fear across the board. They're gonna take your jobs. The black people gonna want to have intercourse with your women and your daughters and this and that.
That's Trump's latest one. Oh my God, he says he saved the suburbs. He should go to the suburbs. It's like your son. African Americans live in the suburbs. One of the reasons that African American political groups like Freedom are not as powerful as they used to be is because their base moved.
In the suburbs.
Right, in the suburbs or even less. In 1982, I was involved in Alan Wheat's campaign for Congress. And of course, John Sharp was running on the Republican ticket for it. And we did all sorts of things, but we barely squeaked by. We ended up winning by about.
I don't know whether Alan Wheat's headquarters. I rented him the space on 31st Street.
Yes, no, I do remember that. Absolutely. And, but we won. And when people started counting up the votes, I was able to say, well, because people are saying, oh my God, he'll never win in November. And I said, sure he will. White people will vote for Alan.
He was the really first one
they said, well, let me tell you, so they said, well, the only reason he won in the primary was freedom. I said, well, yeah, freedom. But I said a third of his votes came from non-freedom wards, which was absolutely true. Now, that did not mean that all of those 1/3 were white people.
Did you know Babyface?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was hold it. He was like one of my godfathers.
Oh, okay.
And so when you say, he'd get that north end vote squared away down there. Yeah, I'm saying back then, Hasley and the group that you really broke your teeth with, those were politicians. I don't think we really have, and you're a politician, do you think that the current politicians that are representing us are as effective as the people that you came through the ranks with?
Well, here's one of the problems. They're every bit as bright. There's no problem with that. One of the problems with term limits, which we have at the city and which we have at the state of Missouri, is that it takes time to learn. And you can learn better if you're coming into a situation where longer termed people have been there so that you can observe what they're doing. I mean, I came into the council in 1987. Mark Bryant was there. Charles Hasley was there. Emmanuel Cleaver was there. Bobby Hernandez was there. I mean, those were just, Riffle had just gone off. So, I mean, but there were substantial council people with substantial years of experience. Right now, you come in and maybe you have somebody like me on the council who's been there before that maybe knows some things, but mostly you're interacting with people who this is their first day at the office, just like you. And you get through one term, and if you're lucky, you run, they're successful a second term. That's it. 8 years of experience.
And I'm sorry for that. I don't know whether you even know this.
Yeah.
I had this conversation. Once upon a time, you couldn't get elected to nothing, a dog catcher, unless you, the city, what was the powerful organization? I was vice chairman.
And Association?
Citizens, right. All right. Carl DeCapo is my godfather.
Oh, yeah.
I think you know that.
Sure.
And Carl had made me vice. And I was so mad at Hasley and Bobby and them because they had a choke. Really, they had a chokehold on our community and the politics. And I co-sponsored that 2-term limit.
Oh, okay. Well, you made a mistake.
Right, hold it. And I'm saying you grow and you learn. Didn't I say a certain section of the white people that are voting against their own interests because they don't know that they voting against their own interests?
Right. That's right. Exactly.
By the time the ramifications, and that didn't show up for me for about 10 to 15 years, and me understanding, damn, by the time you learn how to access power, you on your way out.
Exactly.
And that was a bad move.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm just agreeing with you on those limits.
Yeah. Yeah. But what I'm saying is what you see then is you see elected officials who just don't have the depth of experience of some of the people that came before them. And that's, and that's.
You find your colleagues will listen to you?
Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But sometimes I listen to them and sometimes I don't.
No, when I say this, because as you say, at least you gave them a bunch of credit. You said they bright. Yeah, well, do you feel that you can work, and because you are at large, that you can work with the council, the Black council people to achieve some of their objectives? Me personally, I've been trying to get them. What are 5 things that all 4 of y'all could go to the wall on?
Well, I think we're all interested at looking at the issue of economic development and how we do it in this city.
How do you see that Vine Street crap playing out?
Uh,
Economic development. Yeah. Boy, you should see your face. You should see your face.
I think we've got some really good developers, it sounds like, that have come in now that did this last thing. One of the things, I mean, there's so many things. We want to talk about 18th and Vine.
Yeah.
First off, we put money in, but maybe we don't put it in for the right things. Like I was having a conversation with some of my colleagues. They were wanting we had something before us. They were bringing a new restaurant in and the city was going to spend, let's say $100,000. I don't remember the amount, to do tenant finishings. And then the person there would pay it back in terms of additional rent over the term of the lease. And some of my, frankly, minority colleagues were saying, oh, we don't know, and then when it should be doing. I said, for God's sakes, I think we ought to give them the tenant finishes and give them 6 months or a year free rent.
Because you know what that sounds like? Now, were you councilwoman when Maxwell did the shopping center?
No, he was right. That was right after me.
Oh, all right.
After I went off.
I don't know whether I owned pizza restaurants, and at one time I owned the corner of 27th and Prospect. That's where I had my Goodfellas Pizzeria. But at that time, that's when they were building the shopping center, and the banks were supposed to be giving loans. But all them damn loans went to pay rent. They were supposed to be micro loan. How, from my perspective as a businessman, how they structure things for Black businesses to succeed and Black people to succeed in these different situations. They never, I told Maxwell the other day, not one of those businesses survived out of all of that. And it was because these schemes perpetrated by people that have the knowledge of how to manipulate these things. And when I was talking about the squad, that's Ocasio and them, they tired of the same thing in government. That is not serving the people that it's supposed to serve. And so on this economic development, I had 7 offices on the 2nd floor of the Lincoln Building. I moved out of there. And now Ron Chaney, who had the ethnic arts down there next to Sori's, passed away a week and a half ago.
Didn't realize that.
Yeah, all right. So you don't really have a whole lot of things going on down there for the money that has been spent down there, and especially the money that's been spent with Black people. I'm not scared to criticize these people that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so as a councilwoman, and you representing not just the district you live in at large, how do you all feel, and you probably have a temperature of the white council people about Vine Street and the money that's been down there and the progress that's been made?
I think all of us would like Vine Street to be a great success.
Don't give me your political answer. We know that we all want it to be a success, but where is it heading? And the rudderless jazz museum without no damn captain. And then I hadn't looked at these dynamics, and maybe the jazz district is the jazz district. And because of the economic situation, the hip hop crowd almost has taken over the jazz district. And those are two incompatible things.
Right. I've heard,
And you as a council person, again, I know you got a lot of things on your plate, but as I always say, I'm only concerned with, at this point, what's happening with my Black brethren and in my community. Do your colleagues ever do y'all have any private conversations on any of this?
Sure. And in fact, we have really been encouraging to do RFQs to get private companies involved. And first of all, last term we did with the Joe brothers they're artists out of China, and they have a big.
Oh, right. Are they still going to be doing that school?
Yeah, they are.
All right.
Absolutely. I just actually had a meeting with them a week or two ago where they obviously COVID slowed everything down, but I think they believe that they're going to start work on
I'd love to get if you can have your aide give me some contact information. I'd love to get them on a Zoom to talk about what they're doing.
So I think that's very promising. I think the whole use of that as an arts center is something that will be good for all of Kansas City. And
where are you at on the airport?
Well, I was against expanding it initially. And frankly, given the way the economic situation we're in now, I kind of wish that's the way we'd gone.
Do you think it's been fair and equitable for Blacks out there from a contract standpoint? And do you feel, because I got to go back to your history, you've been around the corner about 5,000 times. You done seen all these damn projects come through in the last 30, 40 years, and who's benefited from them? And do you think that speaking in your at-large council voice,
right.
do you think that minorities have gotten their fair shake overall of construction that is taking place in Kansas City?
It appears to me, if we're talking about the airport, we seem to have the numbers that demonstrate that. They made a commitment of 30 or 35%.
Well, I don't know. You got to remember, Kat, that I was in construction, and I hate to say things like this on the air, but since I've already said them 100 times, when they did that stadium, them stadiums out there, them stadiums should have made at least 10 Black millionaires, and they didn't. And there was a Black person, because I usually just throw them under the bus, but there was a Black person over the monitoring of that there were things that had teeth in there to say, you're not doing this right, and you need to do this, and it didn't happen. And so that's what I'm saying with the airport. I don't follow these things a whole lot, but because I am Black media, you'd be surprised that the staff at the city, the staff at the county, they are sending me up. Did you know this? Did you know that? Did you know? And with that airport, they just got some stuff squared away, from my understanding, with a contractor that is hiring some minorities, but they had given this contract to someone that the minority should have got it. They had, and I don't even know who it was, but my understanding was they had 10 Black subcontractors that were going to get substantial contracts, and then they awarded the contract to whoever they awarded it to. And it just reminded me, when I was in construction, they would say the lowest bid is not the best bid. So why are you even bidding? Because if I win it, then you can say that's, and I'm like, all these hocus pocus games are only played with us. And I put this to you from the city. And as I told the mayor, we have the largest Black audience in Kansas City. And why doesn't the city not doing one bit of business with us? They advertise all the time, but yet you are promoting the Black agenda, everything but the economic part of the agenda. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you're in position. I would be remiss. It might sound self-serving, but it's not. I'm on freedom. How could, out of all of the years that we've been around, you never do no advertisement with us? But we get ready to do some things with them. But it's personalities. Instead of the mission, we get involved. I don't like what he said. I don't like this, or I don't like, instead of saying, I don't like him, but we're going in the same direction, and on these issues. And that's what I was saying about my council people. I'm asking them, do y'all even have 5 issues that you are willing to go to the wall with? Then your other stuff, that's separate. But 5 issues that are major, that are affecting the Black community, that you're gonna go to the wall with. Do you have issues that you go? Are you ready to go to the wall for? Can you name 4 or 5 things?
I think I started to try.
Go ahead. I know I talk a lot, but hey.
First of all, this whole issue of economic development incentives and what is the right amount, where should they be used? That's something that I think we definitely are coming together on as a council with both the white and the African-American council people. I think in 18th and Vine, we have some agreement there in terms of, again, trying to bring in some developers. The Chu brothers were the first piece of that. Chow brothers, Chu brothers, Joe brothers were the first of that. Now we've got 2 more development groups, one doing the Boone Theater, rehabbing it, and the other group looking at that whole stretch from 18th and 19th along Vine Street, all that were buildings that were owned by the city. Another big issue I've had with 18th and Vine is starting back with Emmanuel. I kept saying, Emmanuel, you can't call it the 18th and Vine Historic District if you keep tearing down all the historic buildings. And of course, they stopped tearing them down, but they also didn't maintain them. And so now along between 18th and 19th, they're on Vine. All we've got is some facades left.
And that's what I was saying about the money.
With the Boone Theater. But that's a different, that's trying to understand and everybody go in the same direction. And unfortunately, at 18th and Vine, there has been very much influences there that I think would be happy if 18th and Vine looked like Lenexa. Well, ain't nobody coming to 18th and Vine because it looks like Lenexa. But I think that's been a major problem. But I think we've got 2 very well-financed and
that's the key,
reputable and experienced development groups. And both groups have partners in it that are both
knowledgeable, stable, and financial.
Yes, but in addition to that, it's a mixture of African American and Caucasian business people. And so I think we're about on the cusp of actually making some important movement forward at 18th and Vine.
What do you think about the county? Now I'm going rapid now.
Okay.
The county and the money they supposed to be giving you.
They gave us 18 million, which is more than anybody else.
Don't they still got some more to give you?
We certainly have a need above the 18 million. Whether the county is going to agree to give us any additional dollars, I haven't heard the final.
What's your take on the police chief? Everybody's beefing about him. Not everybody, but a certain segment.
He's not a dynamic leader. He came in and dismantled Nova. And
explain to our community what Nova is real quick.
Oh, well, it was a program that basically targeted in on people that you thought were the bad actors in the neighborhood, but you hadn't gotten anything serious on them. It's kind of the way. So you brought them in along with community leaders and parents and the police and basically said, hey, we know who you are. We're watching you. Now, if you jaywalk, we're arresting you. If you drop some litter, we're arresting you.
Where you on the FBI?
Now, let me finish my answer on this before we go on to a next one. And so, but on the other hand, they also had the, hey, do you need help? What can we do to help you choose?
Who's funding Nova?
The Kansas City, Missouri funded it through the police department. And then I also think the Jackson County prosecutor.
The combat didn't have nothing to do with it?
I think that's where the county money came from, yes. But my point is, it was a program that was actually having dramatic results. Although there'd been some slippage in the last year.
Right.
But when Chief Smith came in, he said, no, that doesn't work. We're getting rid of it. I've got some other program, but he's been there 3 years and he hasn't put the program in place.
Because I'm wondering, why do people want to get rid of him besides the bad performance of the interaction with the police? But it seems like Gene Peters Baker and him have gotten the ire up of quite a few people in the Black community. Well,
I don't know. I will say, just back on Smith, I think, again, you've had, runaway homicides. You do away with the program that was at least trying to address them.
The mayor's backing him.
I'm sorry, what?
The mayor's backing him.
You mean our mayor?
Yeah, he's backing him. And from my little sources in my community, they don't really like that. They like you said, everybody likes what the mayor's doing to a degree, but they don't like him backing this police guy.
Well, I think it's unfair to say the mayor's backing him. I think the mayor's a member of the police board. I think he sees where the votes are. Frankly, under state statute, I'm not sure that you can fire the police chief except for cause.
Yeah, well, I've had the state people, Bland Love Manley, and one of her constituents out of St. Louis. I forgot what that state, because it is a state deal who controls the police. And I was asking them the same thing. Where do they fit in on? Do you want the city to control the police, or do you think it's all right with the state?
Can I interrupt you a second? We are now a little bit after 4, and I have another meeting.
All right, let you go.
All right, thank you so much.
Give my audience some closing statements of what you really want them to know. Because, hey, Kat, I'm bringing you back on. I'm finding your daggone aid, and till she get me hooked up with you again. So, because you've been around, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's things that you can talk about this city, about the politics, about your constituents, that possibly can be helpful in unraveling the Gordian knot, where people can know a little bit more and make some better business decisions. What's your closing statements?
Well, I'm delighted to have been with you today and your audience. I look forward to coming back other times. I think my closing statement now, less than 3 weeks before a national election, is get out and vote. If you can, if you have a reason, ability to go early, go, but go and vote. And
tell
that
our
would
audience how they can contact you and your aide if they want to talk to you or write into you.
All you have to do is go on the city website and look up 4th District at large. There will be my picture and my name and all my contact information in terms of emails and phones, etc. So please, if anyone has an issue they want to raise with me, I hope they will reach out. But now I really do have to go. But
all right, Ms. Shields, as I always say, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
This program is brought to you by Dye Electric LLC, Energy in Motion.